What does it mean to be resilient? Is it the strength to endure hardship, or the courage to confront it? To see a world of suffering and not just look away, but to step inside? In the late 1880s, Chicago was the fastest-growing city in the world, a crucible of industry and immigration. But for thousands arriving from Europe, the promise of America was a dim reality in crowded, impoverished slums. They lived in the shadows of great wealth, their struggles ignored by the powerful. And then, a woman arrived, a woman from a life of privilege, who chose to walk into these shadows not as a visitor, but as a neighbor. Her name was Jane Addams. She didn't come with grand pronouncements, but with a simple, radical idea: to live with the poor, not just for them. This is the story of how that single idea sparked a movement, founded a profession, challenged empires, and forever changed the landscape of American compassion. A story that proves, when women rise, history changes. Laura Jane Addams was born in 1860 in the small farming town of Cedarville, Illinois. Her childhood was marked by both privilege and profound loss. Her mother died when she was just 2, and she grew up in the shadow of her father, John Hy Addams, a successful miller, state senator, and friend of Abraham Lincoln. He was a man she described as a man who held converse with great minds, and she revered him. But Jane was also a child apart. She contracted tuberculosis of the spine, which left her with a lifelong curvature and a sense of being homely. She was a voracious reader, and from Charles Dickens, she developed a deep concern for the poor. Graduating at the top of her class from Rockford Female Seminary in 1881, she was part of a new generation of new women, educated, independent, and searching for a purpose beyond marriage. But the 8 years that followed were a period of crisis. Her beloved father died suddenly, plunging her into grief. She attempted medical school, but was forced to drop out due to her own health problems, including a serious spinal operation. She fell into a deep depression, feeling useless and adrift. Writing to a friend about her despair, she traveled to Europe, seeking meaning in art and culture, but found none. It was on a second trip to Europe in 1888 that her vague leanings finally crystallized. In London's impoverished East End, she visited Toynbee Hall, the world's first settlement house. Here, she saw university men living and working among the poor, sharing knowledge and community. She was enchanted. It was, she said, so free of professional doing good, so unaffectedly sincere. The blueprint for her life's work was now in her hands. In 1889, Jane Addams and her college friend Ellen Gates Starr moved into a dilapidated mansion on Halsted Street, owned by Charles Hull. They called it Hull House, and with that act, the American settlement house movement was born. Their mission was radical for its time, to provide a center for a higher civic and social life. They didn't preach, they listened. They started not with charity, but with community. A kindergarten was among their first initiatives, then a daycare for children of working mothers. They offered classes in English, citizenship, bookbinding, and art. They established a public kitchen, a gymnasium, a music school, and one of the nation's first little theater groups, the Hull House Players. The house became a haven, a university of the people. But Addams knew that goodwill was not enough. Real change required systemic reform. And so, Hull House also became a powerhouse for social research and political activism. Addams and her brilliant circle of residents, women like Florence Kelley, Julia Lathrop, and Alice Hamilton, became patient collectors of facts. They investigated sweatshops, tenements, and child labor. They published Hull House maps and papers, a groundbreaking study that mapped the human suffering of their neighborhood. This research became the engine for monumental change. Addams lobbied for and achieved the first juvenile court law in the United States, protective labor legislation, and an 8-hour workday for women, factory inspection laws and workers' compensation, improved urban sanitation with Addams herself taking the paid role of garbage inspector to ensure the work was done. They helped found the National Child Labor Committee, which led to the first federal child labor law. They fought for women's suffrage and were among the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. Hull House was more than a charity. It was an incubator for American social justice. As her fame grew, Jane Addams turned her attention to a global crisis, the rising drumbeat of war. An avowed pacifist, she believed human beings were capable of solving disputes without violence. When World War I erupted, she made a decision that would test her resilience like never before. She opposed American entry into the war. It was a wildly unpopular stance. The press, which had once celebrated her, now vilified her. She was called a traitor, expelled from the Daughters of the American Revolution, and saw her popularity plummet overnight. But she did not waver. In 1915, she served as chairman of the International Congress of Women at The Hague, which later became the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. She became its first president, arguing tirelessly that the world's mothers had a right to protect their sons from the slaughter of the trenches. Though her efforts were mocked during the war, her vision never dimmed. In 1931, long after the war had ended, the world finally caught up to her courage. Jane Addams was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, becoming the first American woman to receive this honor. It was a vindication not just of her pacifism, but of her lifelong belief in the power of compassion over conflict. She shared this award with Nicholas Murray Butler, but the world remembered the name of the woman from Hull House. Jane Addams died in 1935, and the nation mourned the woman who had become its conscience. Though most of the Hull House buildings were later demolished to make way for the University of Illinois, the original mansion stands today as the Jane Addams Hull House Museum, a National Historic Landmark and a testament to her scheme of solidarity. So, what is the echo of her resilience? It is in every social worker who carries on the profession she helped found. It is in every juvenile court, every sanitation regulation, every playground, and every law that protects the vulnerable. Her resilience was not a fortress wall, but an open door. It was the strength to see humanity in its entirety, the poverty, the injustice, the conflict, and to respond not with judgment, but with an unwavering, practical love. She rose from personal despair to national leadership. She rose from the confines of a woman's expected role to redefine that role for generations. She rose from the scorn of her peers to the highest honor the world can bestow. When women rise, history changes. Jane Addams did not just witness history. She shaped it with her two hands, building a world where justice and peace were not just ideals, but the work of every day. Thank you for joining us for this story of incredible resilience. If you were inspired by Jane Addams's journey, please share this video, subscribe to Women of Resilience, and join us next time as we continue to celebrate the women who dared to change our world.